In this video, I'm going to tell you the one Apple Watch that is worth the price. We're going to talk about iPad mini 8.3-inch, deliveries slipping, and the iPhone 13 starts shipping. I'm iCav Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and the one Apple Watch that is actually worth buying now. So, we've just had Apple's first event of the fall. Let's call it the iPhone event. I think that's what most people are going to be calling it. So, iPhone 13 is here. It looks pretty cool. It's got that awesome cinematic mode to it, better cameras all around, faster A15 chips, and then we come to the Apple Watch, and I think I've touched on this a little bit in the past, and you may know my opinions. Don't buy the Apple Watch Series 7. Not that you can right now. It seems that Apple has not quite worked out what's going on with this. It does seem like everything's changed very last minute, which is why they're not quite in production yet and don't really know when they can ship it. So, although we know that it is coming, we know it won't be a super long time until this arrives, we do still have the issue that it is very much thrown together at the last minute and is not actually an intended product as Apple would want to put it out there. So, I think that discounts the Apple Watch Series 7. Now, if you do need all of the cool kind of high-end, more medical side of things beyond the health side of things, so things like the blood oxygen sensor, the EKG, and things like that, those are built into the Apple Watch Series 6, Series 7. You will not get those with the Apple Watch that I'm going to suggest, but I also don't suggest that you pick up the Apple Watch Series 3, which is the cheapest one in the line. This one's at $199, and that's a pretty terrible value too. Couple of reasons for this. Number one, it has been around for at least 4 years now. It has the oldest of designs that Apple has for Apple Watch. So these things do look kind of janky. They've got a small kind of screen that's inset into the middle of the display. They don't have a great deal of watch faces available because a lot of the watch faces are designed for the 40 and 44mm size watches rather than the 42 and 38, which they started with. Now we do have 41 and 45 with the Apple Watch Series 7, and that does have some exclusive faces too, but there's a good deal that you can already get for the mid-range, I guess, Apple Watches. So right now, do not buy the Apple Watch Series 3 because A, it's really, really hard to update because basically it doesn't have enough storage on it to do an update properly, so you have to kind of reset your watch from scratch and then resync it from your phone, and that takes a little bit of time and it's a real inconvenience. So I don't think that's worth getting, especially with its smaller display, and there's a bunch of other stuff missing. Things like the fall detection I don't believe works on that one either. Don't get the Series 7 because it is thrown together. There is only one in the current range that is being sold, which I think you should actually consider buying, which is this one, the Apple Watch SE. Now, the Apple Watch SE is just the sweet spot for most people, I think. Most people don't need an EKG. Most people don't need that blood oxygen sensor, and if you really need the blood oxygen sensor, one of the ones that goes on your finger, they cost about £15, $20, something like that. You can get them very cheaply from Amazon if you must have one. That blood oxygen sensor doesn't work in the background. It won't alert you to issues with your blood oxygen. It's only when you actually go to the app and check it that you will know how it's looking. So it's still a bit of effort, whereas your heart rate monitor and all of the other kind of fitness stuff, more than health stuff, does seem to be built into the Apple Watch SE, which is the one that I would recommend. Starts at $279. Really, really capable. It's got the modern display, the 40 or 44mm display with the rounded corners. It does have slightly thicker bezels than that Apple Watch Series 7, but they also built it to have this display in it, which the Series 7 was kind of fluffed together around a display from the looks of things. So that's my thoughts on Apple Watch. SE is the one to go with, or if you must have those extra medical things, I would look out for a used Series 6. They are going to come in a little bit cheaper than the Series 7s. You might have a couple of little scratches on it, but you are going to get all of those extra features, so I think that would be the best choice if you do need EKG and you need blood oxygen sensors. That's it on Apple Watch. Let's move on. Next up, the iPad mini 8.3-inch deliveries have slipped. And this is to mid-October to late October to even into November for some of the models. colours combinations. So it does look like this has been quite the success. I think a lot of people came out of the event like I did, thinking that the iPad mini was actually the highlight of the event, which is strange because I think Apple probably wants a lot more people to be buying iPhones than iPad minis. And in terms of the iPhones themselves, actually the Pro models have got much longer wait times on them than the regular models too. So those are looking very popular. The base iPhone 13 and 13 mini not doing as well in terms of sales from the looks of things, or it's possible that Apple just had a lot more of those ready because typically they would be the biggest sellers. But speaking of that event, how many of you guys have ordered something? Have you ordered a new iPhone? Have you ordered one of the iPad minis? I have actually ordered 2 of the iPad 9th generation. That is basically Christmas sorted for my kids. So they've got one coming each, both engraved. We will do a little unboxing when they arrive because, to be honest, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old not going to be too bothered if it's not in the original plastic wrap. But I'll be getting them set up as well for the boys so that they are ready to go. And I'm quite interested to see how Centre Stage works. That's one of the few things that I really want to have a play with because I've not used that before, and I'm quite excited to see what that's like. The iPhone 13s have started shipping as well, so if you are one of the people that has ordered themselves an iPhone 13, well done to you, and they are starting to leave China now. Don't get too excited, they probably will not be arriving before Friday, but they are on their way, they are in the wind. And before we go on to talk about what's coming up for the rest of the year and answer your iCave answers in our questions and answers section, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join our newly active Discord. And come back if you left it before because it was really quiet. I am committed to being in there every single day from now on. So what do we still have to look forward to in 2021? Well, as far as we know, these are the products that I'm expecting us to see. The MacBook Pros, of course, 14 and 16 inch with mini LED displays, M1X chips inside. These are the ones that everyone has been waiting for, and by everyone, I probably mean about 10 million people around the world, because that's probably how many Apple are going to sell. Now, it's difficult for people to understand, but before the iPhone event, I was saying I think these could be coming. Everyone was telling me, no, they won't be because they don't want to overshadow the iPhone, and in no way would the MacBooks overshadow the iPhone. The iPhones will sell probably 100 million over the next 3 months, 4 months, and the MacBook Pros will probably sell about 10 million in their first kind of year, I would guess. The MacBooks are outsold by the iPhones massively, but I thought it would have been a really good idea for Apple to bring them at the same event so that people would get to see it, because a lot more people are watching that event for iPhones, and if all of a sudden they see these MacBook Pros that look really cool and are like insanely powerful, that could have been a good thing for the MacBook Pros. However, it's not what Apple's done. The M1X chips that we're expecting are going to be 8 performance cores with 2 of the power efficient cores. Now when you compare that to the M1, you've got 4 and 4, so 4 performance and 4 efficiency chips in those. But the biggest jump is probably going to be in graphics performance, as we are expecting to get 16 and 32 core graphics. We've seen a little bit of the performance jump from A14 to A15. That's not what we're looking at for these MacBook Pros. What we're looking at here is purely bumping up the number of cores in the graphics and in the performance side. So we are looking at probably 90% more performance from these than from an M1 in terms of CPU, and possibly up to 3.5 times more performance on graphics, which is going to be pretty awesome for an integrated graphics solution. What else are we waiting for in 2021? Well, the AirPods 3rd generation are almost certainly going to be arriving with us. It does look like they will have a wireless charging case by default, just like the Pros, so that won't be an upgrade anymore. It would be fantastic if Apple could bring these in at $149. However, it's probably going to be somewhere between $149 and $200, I would guess. Maybe $179 would be a reasonably fair price, so that it's not quite as expensive as the old ones with a wireless charging case, but also, you know, a little bit more than it was without. We're expecting spatial audio to be featured on these. Probably no noise cancelling. That will remain a Pro feature as far as I can tell. But yeah, I think they're going to be pretty popular when they come out. And also, this is more of an outside chance, but the Mac Mini with M1X. Mark Gurman said a little while ago that he was expecting it to come fairly soon after the MacBook Pros. That could mean a couple of weeks, or it could mean a month or so. So it may slip into 2022, but that's unconfirmed at this point. I would hope that we would see it, because surely there's a lot less that could be constraining this, as the big thing that slowed down the MacBook Pros was those mini LED displays. No mini LED displays for a Mac Mini. And what not to expect in 2021, the AirPods Pro, the big iMac, which we're expecting to be not 27 inches, but 31 to 32 inches. An Apple Silicon-based Mac Pro as well. I'm so excited to see what the performance of that thing is going to be like. And of course M2, which is the next generation of the energy-efficient chips, like the M1. We're expecting to see that the spring event, and that would be introduced with a new look MacBook Air, or at least MacBook. We don't know if it'll be an Air or if it will be just branded as a MacBook. I feel like either could happen. We've got some interesting renders for these from Apple Tomorrow on Twitter, who is our resident render boy. He's done some of the new colours that we're expecting to see. We're expecting the white bezels like the iMac. We're expecting white keyboards and more vivid colours than with anything else. So that's my expectations for 2022. But I want to ask you guys a question before we get to answering yours. Is there anything you struggle with in the Apple hardware world? So workarounds you need, for example, using an older iPad that doesn't run the current operating systems to download apps that the App Store tells you aren't compatible. That can be done. If you've had that problem in the past, or any other questions like that, let me know down below with iCave How To. I might be doing a bit of a mini series on the channel. And into your iCave answers, starting off with Team Kinetix. iCave answers, can you have a word with Tim Apple and get him to release the M1X Max now, please? But seriously, when do you think we'll see M1X, and why the delay? Is there even a delay, or was Q4 always the plan? To the best of our knowledge, Apple was expecting to put these out around about June time at WWDC. And the biggest reason that I think that is because M1X and M1X MacBook Pro were both tags in the YouTube video that Apple put out themselves. These were, by all intents and purposes, planned to come out at that event. So that's when we were expecting them. Obviously, it was delayed. John Prosser was saying that they were expected at that event. A lot of other people were saying that they were until just before the event, and then said, oh, there might be a delay. So I'm surprised they're not out already. I do think it might have just been a case of overpacking an event and Apple wanting to spread out the attention on their products for a little bit longer. So in terms of when we're expecting to see them, my money is still on October the 12th as an event date. That would give us September the 14th, then a week after that on September 21st. That's when the review embargo will be up on these iPhones, and then they come out this Friday, so that's the 24th. The week after that, we kind of have a little bit of a lull, and then the week after that we get our invites to the October the 12th event. That's what I would expect to be going on, so that little buzz from everyone kind of using their iPhones for the first couple of weeks, getting used to what they can do, posting the videos shot with that new cinematic mode, that will all happen. And then I think the 12th of October, that's when we hit our next event. Rob Rehnmark Raw-Viking asks, iCave answers, I've been trying to figure out whether the iPhone 13 Pro greater than 256GB will do ProRes 60 when dropping to 1080p resolution, but I haven't found any real answers. What is your insight or take on it? So right now I can't find any information at all online about the iPhone 13 Pros doing ProRes at anything more than 30 frames per second, unfortunately, which probably means that 30 frames a second is its ceiling right now. Now, this could well be changed in software later on, because the 128 gig models will only record 1080p at 30 Hz for ProRes, and the larger storage models can do 4K. But 4K is using 4 times as much storage for every frame of video. So if you're going down to 1080p and doubling your frame rate, you're still at only half the bit rate, I believe, of the 4K 30 ProRes. I know this is going to sound a little bit confusing, but hopefully that makes some sense. So there shouldn't be a technical limitation on being able to do it, but I think it is something that at the moment they're just sticking with that 30 frames a second. You can't even put it down to 24, I don't think, but I'm sure you can convert it in post. although it will end up being a little bit choppy if you do that, because it's going to have to kind of interpolate frames, I guess. Adam M asks, iCave Answers, what are the prospects of Apple releasing a consumer-grade standalone display within the next year or two? I'm considering a modular approach once my Intel iMac reaches its use-by date and hate most of the PC monitors out there. Apple still produces the best internal displays by far, so it seems strange that they abandoned the consumer market for an external display. They clearly invest a lot of effort in the Mac Mini, so why not make a great quality and more reasonably priced display to go with it? Now, I completely agree with you. I think Apple should be making these things. However, I think we are likely to see it. However, I do think we're unlikely to see it until we get to the back half of next year, around about this time probably next year, when we get our larger iMac. Now, in the past, Apple has pretty much always used the panel from its largest iMacs. When we had the Apple Cinema display and Thunderbolt display that came in the 27-inch format, they were both using the iMac panel. Since then, Apple seems to have kind of just let LG release these panels in their own kind of casings and what have you, but that would be probably the closest you can get at the moment, is to grab one of the LG panels. But yeah, I think it's going to be next year when we get that larger iMac. That is, I think, when Apple will bless us with the standalone display that we've all been calling out for. Evan Rogers asks, iCave Answers, what do you think the screen resolution will be on the M1X MacBook Pro 14 and 16 inch 4K? So I don't think Apple is going to go to 4K displays, because there's literally no point. At the distances that people look at these displays, you're not going to see that level of pixel density, so it makes more sense to go for what they call Retina, which means that at a typical viewing distance you cannot discern the individual pixels. Now, at the moment for the 16 inch, I believe it is 30 something or other by 1920. I think that might move to the 14 inch size, and then they might go slightly higher on the 16 inch, but I don't think it's going to be massively higher than that. I think it's going to be maybe a 3K display, but not a 4K. That's my thoughts, but let me know, guys, down in the comments why you think I'm wrong. And Lars Anderson asks, iCave Answers, is there a reason why iPhones still don't get the faster USB-C instead of Lightning when they offer their users to record 4K 60 HDR in ProRes? So the reason for this, as far as I can tell, is that they don't want to have the ports hanging around for much longer at all. I think at the moment there's not enough kind of adoption of MagSafe, but MagSafe will become the kind of de facto charging method for all of the iPhones very, very soon, and I think that's going to move over to a lot of the other stuff as well. In terms of why they haven't switched over, if they're going to get rid of the ports, then it makes a lot more sense to simply keep the one that they have for an extra year or so, until they just get rid completely. Now, in terms of moving this stuff across, USB-C is rated 5 gigabits per second, I think, for the basic level, not for the super speed versions, the 3.1, 3.2, I believe. Whereas Wi-Fi 6, which is built into the iPhones and built into most of the Macs, I think at this point, or at least the Apple Silicon ones, is 3.5 gigabits per second. So there's not an enormous difference there. I think for most people that would be enough. So I think that's really the biggest reason. I think, yes, you're going to get some big files, but I don't think Apple is going to switch to USB-C just to get rid of it again in a couple of years. I think that's the biggest stumbling block, because as much as there are a handful of people that will be doing 4K 60 HDR in ProRes, the vast majority of people will be recording stuff on their phone and then posting it to Instagram or YouTube or something like that directly. Most people won't be kind of transferring it to a Mac and then using that as their kind of main camera that they then edit high level stuff. That's a very, very small proportion of people that use an iPhone. The vast majority of people who already have an iPhone and want to get the next iPhone would be probably more annoyed, and maybe it would be a stumbling block to them to have to change all the wires that they have at home. I understand that you guys are going to be a techie audience, and you guys are probably going to be like, no, I've got USB-C everywhere. But most of the people that use an iPhone, as we've just mentioned, they are probably going to sell 100 million iPhones this year, and maybe 8 million of those MacBook Pros. I agree that most of the people buying a MacBook Pro are going to have an iPhone. I also think that less than half of those people will ever transfer videos from their iPhone to the MacBook. You have to remember that The people that you listen to, the people that make the most noise on the internet are people like me, people that are YouTubers who probably do a lot more video with their phones and then transferring it from one place to another on their phones. Marques Brownlee has been complaining for years that there's no USB-C on iPhones. Most people, most normal people, just don't care. It doesn't make a difference to them. That hole in the bottom of their phones is for charging it, and pretty much nothing else. Marcin Kowalczyk asks, iCave answers, do you prefer electric cars or fossil cars? I think in this day and age, with how good electric cars have got, if you don't prefer them, then there's something going wrong there. Now, are they as practical in every situation? No. Do they do hugely long distances without stopping to recharge? Nope. But how often do you drive more than 180-ish miles, 200 miles in a car without stopping for a bite to eat or to go to the toilet or something like that? I don't think there's that many situations, and as long as the charging network kind of continues to grow, I think that's not a problem at all. And at the moment, like, if I was to have an electric car for work, even though I am an on-the-road salesman who covers a huge swath of the middle of the UK, there are very few days when I would actually have to recharge it while I'm out and about anyway. So for me, I prefer electric. And weirdly, Josh asks, iCave answers, what is your favourite car? So right now I drive a BMW 3 Series. It's about a decade old, but it's absolutely fine. I may well be getting a BMW i3 for work. Don't know yet. Not 100% sure. But if I could choose any car, it's not quite ready yet, but the Tesla Cybertruck is the one that I really have my eye on and I really quite fancy. Thank you all for watching, guys. Don't forget, if you've got an iCave answer that you would like me to address, leave it with the hashtag down in the comment section, and I will see you in the next one.